Okay, so it's winter, it's snowing, and I'm outside. Pretty much been out here all day looking at cars that won't start. Most of them are just dead batteries. But we got one here that is no crank. It's definitely not the battery. Battery has plenty of power. It passes load test. Even putting a jump starter on it just for shits and giggles did nothing. But we don't even get a click from the starter. So I started looking for the starter, and I don't know if you could show up. Let's see. Alright, so I turned the flash on, and look at that down there. It has a brand new starter on it. So let's go inside the car real fast. Here's what's going on. Put the key in, turn the key, nothing. No crank, not even a click coming from the starter. So at this point, I'm thinking we have an issue maybe with voltage drop, and the car wouldn't start previously. That's why someone just put a starter on it. But obviously, the starter is not the problem. Okay, so I remember watching one of Ivan's from Pine Hollow Auto Diagnostics videos, one of his recent videos, and you know, he's chasing around this problem, an intermittent problem, and it turned out to be the side post terminals here were just loose. So I decided to check them, and sure enough, they were loose, but they did not fix the problem. So just some advice to you: if you ever come across these, it doesn't hurt to check them. It only takes a few seconds. In this case, these were loose, but like I said, did not fix the problem. Okay, so just a quick visual inspection. Here looking at fuses, and I don't know what this fuse is for, but I can tell you one thing: it's blown. Let's see if that'll focus. So that fuse is blown. Let's see on the diagram here. We could. That should be number 26, and 26 is a starter motor. All right. So, just for shits and giggles, let's find one that the same fuse that isn't as important right now and swap them out. Let's see if the car starts. Okay, so I got that fuse out, and it's definitely blown. I took the fuse out of here, which according to here, this is for the cooling fan. So let's just see if the car starts now. You know, obviously fuses don't blow for no reason. There's got to be an issue here, but and there we go, it started up. Okay, so I checked all of the other fuses, ones I could possibly use, but they're all more important than the cooling fan, you know, as far as keeping the engine running. So obviously needs a cooling fan fuse, and I don't have one. So I'm gonna tell the customer to go pick one up ASAP. You know, and it's just little stupid things like this that it's hard to trust people with, you know, because you could easily say, oh, all you need is a fuse, here, go to the auto parts store and pick one up, right? What they'll do is they think their car is fixed and they could not care less, so they'll grab that fuse and just like throw it in their back seat and not worry about it. You know, hour later they got an issue with their car overheating because the fans aren't working. But I'm gonna go tell them and emphasize they need to get this fuse, and that's it. So, and as far as figuring out why the fuse blew, that's an issue for another day. It's too cold out here. Okay, so I'm inside of a 2015 Chrysler 200C. We have one code here. As you can see, we have a cylinder 1 misfire. Okay, so I did the old switcheroo of the two coil packs between cylinder 1 and 2, and it did not make a difference. We still had a misfire on cylinder 1. So I pulled out the spark plug, and look at this. There is pretty much no gap here. So I'm not sure if the spark plug was dropped before it was installed. So that means there had to have been a misfire from the very beginning, and the spark plug does not look new. So were they just driving this long on a misfiring spark plug? Not really sure. Okay, so I turned the flash on. Hopefully this will show up better. But I pulled the spark plug out of cylinder number 2, and you could see the gap on it. And there was a gap on the first cylinder. There really isn't much of a gap there. So that's what it should look like, and that's what we have. Looking at the condition of these plugs, I'm going to recommend the customer just change all 4. And that should take care of the problem. So it's probably going to be a last update on this, unless the problem does not go away. Okay, so I fixed the gap on the spark plug. The car's not running. I've cleared the check engine light, and it's running super smooth now. Now I did call the customer and recommend that they replace all of the plugs, since they kind of look pretty crappy in my opinion. But it's up to her now. The car is running nice and smooth now, no more misfire. So realistically, if she wanted to just leave it at that, she could, but I did recommend she change the plug. So that might be for another day, but the car is fixed. We have a Honda Odyssey, and it's here to get both of the front lower ball joints done. As you can see, they're pretty bad. We're also going to change the stabilizer links and the stabilizer bar bushings. They're pretty worn out. Altogether, everything just makes a horrible clunking noise up front. So we're all set on this side. We have the new ball joint installed. Let's see if I get a picture of that. Everything with Zerk fittings has been greased. New stabilizer link. New bushing for the sway bar. And whatever didn't have cotter pins, I made sure to put cotter pins in it. So I'm all done on this side. Let's go over to the other side. It just really sucks when the C-clamp is facing downward like this and you can't fit an impact gun on it. So we're gonna have to go old school, do it manually. It still works, just slower. This is why I need a lift. Someday I'll get a lift. Doing a alternator on a Chevy Colorado 05, and it goes right there. Now it looks like it should be pretty straightforward, right? Pretty easy. It's right there in your face. But no, because of engineering. So pain in the butt. At first it's pain in the butt, but once you actually get it done, you're like, it wasn't that bad. But still, engineering. Here checking out some fuses, and when I pulled this cover off, I found this relay that did not have a cover on it. So I thought it was neat. You could see it work since it doesn't have the cover on it. Pretty interesting, in case you've never seen the inside of a relay. Oh no, go ahead, alternator. I'll wait. I have the alternator installed. As you can see, it's now charging. Another issue we're having with this is the brake pedal goes down a little bit lower than it should. There's no visible leaks. The vehicle does have rear drum brakes, so that's where I'm going first. Who knows? No one's probably been back there for years. So maybe the shoes are worn out, but time to inspect it. This headlamp is now my favorite source for lighting while I'm working on cars. It's just so convenient. It's on your head, you know, hands free. Two downsides to it: it's expensive. I want to say maybe around $60 if I remember correctly, 60, 70, something like that. Another downside is the one battery that's inside of here. It is rechargeable, but it doesn't last very long, especially when you have it on high. But I like this thing so much, I think I'm gonna end up buying another one. Maybe, just to have one fully charged at all times, you know what I mean? So, it just died on me, and now I have to use my floodlight, which, problem with this, it doesn't really get all the light where you need it to be. And if it just catches, you know, your eye at any angle, it just pretty much blinds you. So yeah, I'd rather be using this. I might have to buy another. This sucks. A family member came over yesterday just to visit, and as she was leaving, she didn't make it about a block away from the house, and someone hit her car. Well, I don't want to say hit her car. Someone ran into her. So you can see the doors all smashed in right there. So she had the right of way going past the green light, and the car coming in the other direction could not stop because of the snow and hit the side of the car. So that just really sucks. So cold out here. I went to get this out of its package, and the package here just shattered like glass. I didn't do nothing but just try to, you know, take it out like normal. Normally this thing's pretty malleable, but in this temperature, I just pulled on it a little bit, it just shattered. It's cold. This is what you call an exhaust leak. Okay, does anyone remember this Pontiac that I put up a video on Instagram just a few days ago? It was a cold, snowy day. It was freezing out. It was a no crank situation. So I checked the car out for the customer, and it turned out this 30 amp fuse right here was blown. So we put another fuse in there, and the car started up. But I told him fuses don't blow for no reason. There's a reason why the fuse is blowing. It's gonna happen again. You're gonna have the same problem. So sure enough, 2 days later he calls me. The car won't start again. Okay, so he gets it. It's been a week now. He gets it towed over here. They just towed it right in front here. And I checked it, and the fuse was blown again. So I didn't have the exact replacement fuse, which is like one of these styles. So I just grabbed a regular fuse like this. I know it's kind of ghetto, but I did what I had to do. And it just kind of fits right there. It doesn't really do too much, you see, as you can see. So just kind of jam it in here a little bit. You know, I'm trying not to cause any damage to the terminals right there. But that does fit. And it was enough to get the car started. I put my jump starter on it because the battery was weak at that point. Put my jump starter on it. Car started right up. I brought it into the driveway, and I'm blocking other vehicles in, and now the car won't start. So I'm like, great. So now I have to actually figure out what's going on here. So I was gonna get ready to do a voltage drop test, but the starter is like way down there, and if you remember correctly, the starter's already been replaced. Okay, so I'm ready to go down there and do a voltage drop test. So let's go down there and see what I found. Okay, thank God for my my foam mat, because just everything's wet down here. It's cold, it's wet, got snow. Anyways, so here's the new starter, okay? You could see it's already drenched in oil. The first thing I noticed is look at that wire right there. And what's it touching? That wire is touching the converter. And let's see if I could fit my hand in here. Okay, since it's a tight spot, I'm just gonna use a power probe to kind of get up in there. Move this wire out the way. Okay, so this is really hard to do, but I've moved that wire back a little bit, and to me it looks like there are some exposed wires on it. Let's see, I'm gonna try to test the wire with the power probe. If there are exposed wires, we should hear the power probe beeping because of it making contact with ground. And there we go. So that's where the shielding on the wire is exposed and melted from the converter, and when the power probe touches right there, ground. Okay, so it's now the next morning. Last night when I found that shorted wire, the car would not start afterwards, and I was here maybe for about 30 minutes going crazy. I'm like, everything checks out, what's going on here? And stupid me, it turns out the battery on the vehicle was just completely dead, okay? And it turns out my jump starter from using it all day was also dead, but I didn't realize it. So I'm wondering why the starter won't crank the engine over. I just keep getting a click. So I spent about 30 minutes messing around with the car, trying to figure out what's going on, all because my battery was dead. Let that be a lesson. But it's now the next morning. I put the battery of the car on a trickle charger last night. It started up just fine this morning. Okay, so here I am underneath that Pontiac G6, and this is the brown wire that was shorting to ground and causing our fuse to blow. So it was shorting somewhere right here in the middle, but further up I noticed the insulation has been compromised, so I'm gonna have to get that fixed as well. But they had a wad of electrical tape right here, so I took it off to see what was going on, and they had these two wires just tied together like that. So no crimping, no soldering, nothing, just tied together and electrical tape. So true definition of a hack job right here. So I'm gonna do my best to get this wire fixed right, clean it up, liquid electrical tape, heat shrink everything, and get this soldered, get this connection actually soldered on right here, and just overall try to protect it from the heat of the converter. So okay, so here's where I'm at. First I put down some liquid electrical tape in the parts of the wire that were exposed, and then heat shrinking, and in some places it even got double layer of heat shrinking. You could see where I soldered, it's not the best solder. It's really hard to solder when you're upside down, and I actually did get burned. But any connections on here are soldered, and then of course the whole wire has been heat shrinked. I think it'll be better off like this. So I know it's not perfect, but I definitely tried. I've been down here a while, and I just want to make sure this repair holds up. Once I get the starter back in place, I'm going to make sure the wire is as far as I could get it away from the converter. But that should be it. Okay, and this one is all done. You can see we have the wires. None of them are no longer rubbing on that heat shield up there. Everything else is routed how it should be. Basically, whoever put the starter in here last they completely, this main harness going to it, they completely flipped it around the other way, so it was pointing upward and basically rubbing on that sharp edge right there. So not only was this wire touching the converter, but the harness itself was rubbing on that sharp edge. So it's all fixed now. We have miles of clearance between the converter and the wiring now, and let's go see if it starts. I was ready to connect the battery, but then I noticed this. Let's see if it'll show up. Okay, send up. Oh, there we go. So we have some green crusties. So I'm gonna go ahead and clean this up, and then I will check the one on the positive terminal, and then we could connect the battery. So I got the negative terminal cleaned up and put some dielectric grease on it. The positive one was perfectly clean, but I still put some grease on it. The only thing left to do is to replace these with the correct fuses that belong here. So one right there. By the way, it's still a 30 amp. I'm still using the same rating. Just we need the correct fuse, and also the one that goes there, because the customer, you know, swapped them around and just blew them out. So we need two fuses. So very first startup. It should start. And there we go. Try it one more time. So this one's all set. The Elantra, and we're here changing a front lower ball joint. I'm not sure what years this one is. Maybe 03, 04. Who knows? But let's go ahead and get this bad boy changed out. Okay, so this one went pretty easy. As you can see, I got the new ball joint installed. The retainer clip is installed. The provided grease is inside of here, and the boot is installed. Now it's just a matter of putting everything back together.